Hey, I'm Mike Backerell, and today we're going to take a look at a Bruce Forman line and use that as a way to look at backcycling through a blues. Let's take a look. So Bruce Forman is one of my favorite guitar players. He was my teacher for the 2 years I was a grad student at the University of Southern California, and we spent a lot of time together. I went to all of his gigs. We carpooled together at times, and he kind of became like a mentor to me in all things, besides just music. So this line comes from Bruce Forman's solo on "Relaxin' to Camarillo" from Richie Cole's album Hollywood Madness. It's a great record, really worth checking out. Bruce plays some great stuff throughout it, as does everyone else on the album. Now, as I got to the third or fourth chorus of his solo, he played this group of notes, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing. I was like, why would he choose these notes over a C7 chord? Because Relaxing Camarillo is a blues in C. And it wasn't until later that night I was watching this old Bruce Forman VHS tape where he explained exactly what he was doing. So he's using the concept of backcycling. And what is backcycling? Well, backcycling is taking the changes from the Charlie Parker tune Blues for Alice over the first four bars and applying them to a regular blues. And what those changes are, because Blues for Alice is a blues, but there's just a lot more movement going on in that tune. So basically, to run down what goes on, so you start on the one chord. On a normal blues, you would play that for four measures and then go to the four chord. But on Blues for Alice, you cycle using 2/5s backwards until you get to that four chord. So what you would do is play one measure C7, and then a 2/5, Bm7 E7, Am7 D7, Gm7 C7, and then you end up at the four chord. So as we take a look at this line, we're going to divide it up into the four different measures of that and show what he's doing in each one. So this first part is just over a C7 chord. And what he's doing is, just look at that. So he starts on the 13, goes up to flat 7. And then he plays an F sharp, which is from out of the key, up to an A, lands on the G. That's an enclosure. And we've talked about that a lot on these lessons, right? So he encloses that 5 and then walks down. And he walks down to the D. So that's the first line on C7. Now over this Bm7 E7 part, one thing you can do when you're playing a 2/5 is you could choose one of the chords in that sequence to ignore. So in this case, Bruce ignores the B7 and just plays E7. So what does he play? So he plays G sharp to E to F sharp, down to D. So that's just your third root, second, flat 7. And then he walks down 13, 5, and then flat 5. And I like that flat 5 note. So that's all he's really doing there. He's just kind of outlining E7, and it's not really a super altered E7. It's not like you have to, superimpose all the different scales. It's just an E7, and then he walks down to the flat 5th. And in the context, because the band's still playing C7, this is going to have a lot of tension to it. So you don't have to worry about playing, some super altered E7 thing. It's going to grab that tension anyways. Now over this Am7 D7, over the last chord I had mentioned, you could ignore one of the two chords. And he does that again, but he doesn't go straight to the 5. He just plays the 2 in this case. So it looks like what he's playing is an E blues scale. Now he's skipping the regular 5th. Now that would work just fine over an Am7 chord. If you look at the tones, we have a root, a flat 7, a 5, an 11, a flat 9. This note's a little out, a root, and a flat 7. So that would work just totally fine over the Am7 chord. If we look at it over the D7 as well, we get 5th, 11, 2nd, and a root. And then that B flat would function as a sharp 5 or a flat 13. Now over this last section, this one's really cool. So we're playing Gm7 C7 theoretically. But what Bruce plays, so what he's doing right there is this. This is a D flat 7. So he plays A flat and bends it a little bit, F, D flat, and A flat again. So what is this? This is a D flat major triad. So how does that function over a G minor 7? Well, it doesn't. But what Bruce is doing is he's playing the tritone above that and doing a tritone sub leading to the C7. So rather than play G minor 7, C7, he's playing D flat 7, C7. When he gets to the C7 part, he just walks down root 7, flat 7. And so that creates an interesting voice thing, because as we're playing through this progression, what we end up with is, C7, B minor 7, E7, A minor 7, D7, D flat 7, C7, F7. So we have that little. So we could walk chromatically through our dominant seventh chords as we go through this cycle if we superimpose them using the tritone subs, and that's something kind of cool to do. So how can we use this on our own? A good first step is to learn blues for Alice in all 12 keys. Really learn to internalize those changes and see it as a cycle. Because one of the big things in jazz is just recognizing these cycles, because they come up in all the standards and they come up in all the tunes we play. So if you can start to recognize this as something that walks its way to the 4 chord and start doing that in all keys. Doing D. And start to recognize that, and then practice slowly improvising over that, so. So go really slow and try to work your way through these changes, and eventually start trying to work them in as you're improvising on a tune. Play a couple choruses of regular blues, and then try one chorus where you back cycle to the 4, and try to work it into your playing as organically as you can. So there's a lot of little mini concepts in here to grab. Besides the back cycling, what about the ignoring the 2 playing just the 5, or ignoring the 5 playing just the 2, or doing a tritone sub of the 2, so you have dominant 7 chords moving in half steps. These are all things you could apply to your own playing rather than just the back cycling, and get your regular 2 5s and your regular cycles sounding better. So thanks for checking out the lesson. Keep practicing. I'll see you next time.